I want to chat about legacy. So I had this friend for a long time, right? And he was very into legacy characters. His fascination was infectious, and he got me to start reading some comics specifically about legacy characters. His favorite in particular was Starman, someone I don't even think people know about anymore. Do people even think about Starman anymore? Either way, he got me reading. I really enjoyed it. I eventually lost touch with his friend, honestly, still quite a bit of a blow to me, but his love of comics and legacy characters affects me to this day. I find them fascinating because he found them fascinating. And, wherever he is, I hope that he's doing well out there. But what was it about legacy characters that brought him such engagement? I'm not really sure, but I know for me, history, for one thing. The level of minutia that exists in most comics continuity is intense, to say the least, and his aptitude for remembering big and extremely small details across universes was absolutely astounding. I talked a little bit in my first video, my introduction, about context, and I think that's one of the best things that Legacy brings us in comics. It's not just a question of what a character's motivation is, but how it stacks against the context of the hero that came before them that they're taking up the mantle of. It's not just that Black Canary kicks ass, but that Dinah Laurel Lance picked up the mantle from Dinah Drake Lance, her mother, and she kicks ass just like her mother did before her. And, in a way, Dinah Drake Lance's mission is immediately validated, in a way. Legacy implies a kind of legitimacy, I think. Not wholly, of course, but at least in a directed way, because the cause is no longer just Dinah Lance, right? But it's also Dinah Laurel Lance's. It's bigger than just Black Canary, because Black Canary is now 2, not just 1. It means more now, and I think that that's a pretty powerful tool to push a story along, being able to make the narrative bigger without directly expanding the stakes. It's a fantastic way of taking issues or concerns that were written before and giving them a fresh perspective. Specifically, what I mean there is that narratives sometimes decide to go bigger than the previous story. I think we see this a lot in television shows where season 2 is way bigger than season 1. Sometimes we kind of lose perspective because of that. Either way, it can be problematic to the storytelling overall, but a new Black Canary doesn't change the stakes necessarily, but it does ask us how Black Canary 2 does things differently than Black Canary 1. How do these characters that are around her see her actions and react to them, realizing that the Black Canary they knew is no longer the Black Canary now, and what issues does that kind of bring up? I think that's an exciting space. I really do think probably the best example of that, honestly, is Dick Grayson becoming Batman, something I mentioned in my Batman video. If you want more information on that, run over to there. But, Jim Gordon quickly remarks that he thought Batman was bigger and stockier when he sees Dick in the costume. That he sounded a little different, and Dick has to quickly play it off. It's obvious, right? It's obvious to many people because other people remark on it as well, but we can't just let the mystery completely go. We have to kind of just pretend like everybody is losing it. And it gives Batman this playful vibe that I think was missing for a long time and was the perfect direction for Batman, especially taking on the more murderous Damian as Robin. A great switch. And it's a shame that had to be taken away so quickly, but alas, again, there's a Batman video you can listen to for that. But I do think that kind of leads to another reason legacy characters can be so fun, in that they are an immediate way to change the dynamic of a character's relationship with others while allowing that character and their mission to kind of continue existing in the same fashion. So it's allowing a fast form of evolution for a character because it's literally a new character, but it provides some really incredible pathos when someone has to kind of fill the big-ass shoes, so to speak, of Batman, Superman, Black Canary. Legacy implies a kind of connection necessary to continue the mission, but oftentimes this reinterpretation can reframe and undermine what might have been most important to the previous incarnation of the character, and that shift in perspective can provide some really amazing details and character progressions. I think both for the lost or maybe even retired hero in that case, the person ultimately that trained them to take over for them. And I think regardless, you get to see some really cool stuff happen if it is somebody changing and seeing this character that they created changing, or the family of a deceased hero having to see someone else take up that mantle and what they do with it. That can be really impactful. And most characters that grow up to become the superheroes that trained with them, I would say from Bucky Barnes in his earlier incarnations to Robin, they're usually recruited or they ask permission directly of the hero that they want to train with, to fight beside. And very rarely does a character just kind of become the next version of a hero without being directly related to them in some way or another. Rarely by blood, but sometimes by blood. We'll get into that later, obviously. I mean, nearly every Robin asked Batman to become Robin, right? Kid Flash was so interested in Barry Allen that he did the same experiment to give himself Flash powers. Donna Troy was saved by Wonder Woman and then began to train to fight alongside her. Even Cassie Sandsmark, fought hard to get Zeus to grant her powers so that she could become the new Wonder Girl. These are characters that obviously know what they want in their lives. And then we get to my boy, Superboy. And I mean both of them and their relationship to Superman, but mostly I'm going to talk about Connor Kent here for a bit. Superboy 1, I guess technically he's Superboy 2, since Clark Kent technically went as Superboy for a little while, and Connor Kent is... Either way, we're just going to call him Superboy 1. He's one of the most fascinating superheroes of all time to me, particularly in relation to his legacy with both Superman, Clark Kent, and Superboy, John Kent, who then becomes Superman himself. During the death and return of Superman era, Superman gets killed by Doomsday, and a bunch of super figures show up to try and replace Superman. Though none of them stand a chance against the ultimate evil of Cyborg Superman. I think we all know this at this point. In fact, it takes Superman, right, coming back from the dead. He's really just taking a nap, and then he comes up and he punches Cyborg Superman and sets the world back onto a normal path for everyone. And of the characters that came out of that period, like the Eradicator, Steel, and Superboy, all of them have endured in some form or another, often being rebooted and to varying degrees of success. But, Superboy stands out to me as a character that readily relates to the human condition, especially in the legacy he's meant to carry on. He's raised in a lab, the combination of Kryptonian, specifically Clark Kent's, and a human's DNA. Superboy is unleashed when Superman dies, and Star Labs is just we don't know what to do anymore, so we're just going to send this kid out, and hopefully everything will be okay. Hopefully the cataclysm will end. And he can't keep up, right? He's just a younger version of Superman, and not even entirely Kryptonian. He has to rely on something called tactile telekinesis, or TTK, for a while to achieve super strength, flight, and invulnerability. And only later on in his storylines, way later on, does his Kryptonian DNA awaken and he gains any actual Kryptonian powers. But it's in this, right? It's in his creation that interests me the most. He didn't ask to be created, and he certainly didn't ask to be the successor of Superman, where almost every other sidekick in some way or another chooses to be the next evolution of their characters. Superboy screams, "Don't call me Superboy," in one of his earliest experiences as a superhero, quickly disavowing his relationship to Superman. This is ultimately continued, I'd say, as the teenage rebellion phase, as we see Superboy's really hot-headed, hates his rocky relationship with Clark for most of their early time together, and ultimately gets into a lot of trouble hanging out with the Teen Titans and Young Justice. He even has to confront a fully Kryptonian version of himself, Match, that shows what he could have been if he didn't have the human DNA. Match is problematic in his own right because he's unstable, what have you. But then we learn who Superboy's other donor parent is, Lex Luthor. Not only does Superboy have two dads, heck yes, but he also suddenly faces this really harsh question, or bank of questions, as I'm about to lay out. Can he trust himself? Can he trust his genes? Up to this point, Superboy was finally starting to feel like he had a connection to Superman. He was living with the Kents. He'd even been given the name Connor by Clark Kent, and then he was given the name Kon-El by Superman. True proof of his heritage as a Kryptonian. The issue that occurs in was actually given to me by that friend I mentioned above. Very cool. I'm very happy to have it. And in an instant, Superboy no longer trusts himself, his heritage, his own choices. He doesn't know what to do. We have to question, will he recover from this? And nope, not at all. Not when it turns out that Luthor has this kill switch in him, or whatever you call it. And with a simple turn of phrase, Superboy goes ballistic and tries to kill all of the Titans. He hurts a couple, off the top of my head in this ramble, can't remember, so we're just gonna keep going. Enters one of the absolute best story arcs, I think, of any comic book character, Superboy, Boy of Steel. And in this comic, I think it speaks to the brilliance of what it means to be a person, not just a superhero, but like a person. Not only has Superboy just harmed the people that he loves the most and that love him the most, now he's not even sure that all of Luthor is gone from him, and he has to kind of come to term with the fact that Lex Luthor was his other donor, and that Lex Luthor will never not be a part of him. So he begins to write down actions he takes over his recovery period from being taken over, and he asks himself, like, am I more Superman or am I more Lex Luthor? What he's really doing is asking if he's good, right? If he's worth all of the love that the people near him are giving, whether he deserves to be the person that he wants to be more than anything else. And he's a child, right? He's a literal child in this situation, unsure of what to do about the tendencies or ideologies often passed down to us by our parents. In this moment, Superboy becomes one of the most relatable superheroes I think I've ever seen. He has never been invested in becoming Superman, but now he has to question his worth against what actions he assumed Clark would make, solely so that he can see himself without the lens of his other parent, one of his actual supervillains. This kind of gets at what I think I was talking about in my Batman video a bit, that sidekicks often give children and young adults the ability to process and fight some of the real difficulties in their lives. And honestly, I think this is one of the most down-to-earth examples that we get to see or are told with superheroes. Are we our parents? What does it mean if we are? Do we owe them something? Are we born simply to become their image, their successor? What do we do if we have an abusive or controlling parent? I think what's special about Superboy's story is it ultimately begs the question, what do you want? Not your parent, what do you want? When you are a teenager with your entire life in front of you, what is it that you want to be? Superman's storyline slowly shows him becoming proud of Connor, not for being a clone of like Clark Kent, but for becoming someone that Connor should be proud of. And I think that's incredible that like we see Connor grow into a person that Connor should be proud of, that his parent finally recognizes is like a brilliant person who deserves that love and respect. And we get to just see Connor Kent for the first time, right? Again, I guess we would say, like, really again. And then we get to see Kon-El again. He gets to finally be this person again that he felt like he had lost touch with. And then they kill Connor. Mostly because of some copyright issues, let's be real. And ultimately, he is brought back to life with another amazing storyline, I'd say, where he has to help Tim Drake come to terms with Connor's death and then his subsequent return to life. It's a really wonderful tale about like love and friendship, and it's the reason I think most people ship Superboy and Robin together, myself included. Ooh, woo. Would love to see the two of them together. I do love that both Tim Drake and Superboy are bisexual now, but it's the wrong Superboy. I'm still glad that Superman is bisexual, though. Who was the super... Either way, getting too complicated. Then, like, bam, right? Bam, bam. Flashpoint happens, and then everything that was good is just gone. Everything that was good is just gone. The New 52 happens, and that amazing character development goes right out the window, and we get that, like, edgy, shitty Superboy again, but not like the fun teenage rebellion hero we had before. This one's just like an ass, and his storyline is like usurped by John Kent, the first version of Superman and Lois's child, who like melts, if I remember correctly. I don't know, it was not good. And then, eventually we get John Kent, and he goes on to become Superboy. Connor, absolute nowhere to be found at the end of the Convergence storyline, but we did get DC Rebirth, that's fine, I guess. John Kent forms the Super Sons with Damian, and the two of them start going on ragtag adventures together. John is excited to be Superboy. He's excited to follow in Clark's footsteps, right? He wants to be Superman. He was born, right? Not created for this. He grew up with a loving family, and he wants that world, and not just to, be created in the event Superman dies and the world needs a Superman. John just wants to be Superman because he loves his dad and idolizes him. And we find, John's new role as Superman, for me, is absolutely fascinating. John has now, like I mentioned before, come out as bisexual, and he's marched with teenage climate activists. He's been on the cover with Nightwing, another hero that I love, and so many, many more. The mantle passed. Superman proud of his son for becoming Superman. And then we get Connor back in Young Justice. Oh my gosh. And I honestly hate this version of the character. I can't stand it. It's so weird. The child, I don't know. When Connor shows up in main continuity, not in the magical gem world universe where we originally find him, Clark doesn't remember him at all. No one really does, though Jonathan and Martha Kent have a strong memory of him. They remember him eventually, and then they immediately take him in. But again, Connor has returned to this like weird in-between space, a person that's lost a huge chunk of his personality, lost his history, lost his relationship, and the years that it took to form in comics continuity with Superman, and now there's just a new Superman. His original purpose to become Superman when the time came, not because he wanted to, but because he had to, doesn't even really matter anymore. Clark has someone else to do that. They've already done it. Someone that wants that. In fact, they realize that sooner or later, Connor is probably going to lose all of his superpowers. I hate this move too, but either way, this is what's happening. Connor won't even be able to take up the mantle even he wanted to, which was his original purpose, and that's now moot. But I will say he's like seen happy to be living with the Kents again, feeling good about being able to protect them while his like powers last. So I'm honestly happy to see him happy because it's been a long time since Connor Kent has just been allowed to be happy. And, I grew up idolizing Superboy and his struggles and understanding his legacy. My own father used to talk about how he wanted me to take over the family business, and for a while I was worried it was something I had to do, but then I had this character to relate to, right, that had Superman as a dad, and well, kind of a dad, right? And all of a sudden there's this character standing up to him, telling him that's not what he wanted in his life, and that was so cool to me. I can't help but feel like Superboy's storylines have been all over the place. Let's be real, they have. Sometimes absolutely grand, like Boy of Steel, and then terrible, like all the things that happen in New 52. But when it comes to legacy characters, I couldn't help but feel like his was a grand story of what it meant to understand yourself in a space where legacy is kind of the only thing you have to look forward to. That even if you've got that big giant S on your chest, it's not the S's relationship to Superman that matters, but how you define what that S means to you, as cheesy as that sounds. I do hope that we keep seeing Connor in big media appearances because I think his story is honestly one of the most human of all of the superheroes I've ever read. He's a character that deserves better. And where he is now with the potential to lose his powers, I really hope that we get a storyline where he gets to kind of dig into that, especially knowing that Superman had a half-human son, much like Connor, that is proud to be Superman, and that Superman is proud to be Superman, but like Connor really has never gotten the chance to be Superman, aside from in some like one-off kind of appearances for like fan servicey reasons. But like, Superman shunned him as a child, and to be shunned by a parent early on, when you were created for the sole purpose to become what that parent was, like I want to dig into that, especially as he's losing these powers, because I think Connor deserves the introspection. He deserves the chance to complete his storyline that started in 1993 when he came about, and I think this is the place to do that. A story really rooted in his relationship with Clark Kent, so I hope that Clark starts to remember him or something, because Connor's legacy is very important. I really do. I think it's very important, and I think he deserves to finish it proudly. Well, if you liked listening to me rant about Superboy for 18 minutes, please like and subscribe. It's really going to help me out to get more engagement. Share this video if you like it, especially if you really like Superboy, because I do, and I would love to see other people who like Superboy. It helps me find some cool folks to follow. Either way, I should have some new content coming out soon. I'm currently working on a Resident Evil 8 video, which I am hoping to have ready around the time that Resident Evil 8's first anniversary happens, so that's coming up pretty soon, so hopefully I'll have that content created. And I am hoping to have a couple of other little quick posts coming out soon, so until next time, hope you enjoyed this chat, and once I have something else I want to yammer on about, I will be on the internet to do so.